What's going on, everybody? Well, Mafia making a new video here. It's been 3 weeks since I made a legitimate, normal upload, non-live stream. I thought, why don't we do something very non-controversial, something that everyone will agree with, and tier rank every SEC school's transfer portal class, completely unbiased. Which that's clickbait. There's definitely going to be some bias in here, but you'll see pretty early on here. I think I'm pretty fair. Some schools I hate the most, I'll give a good ranking because I'm not stupid. I'm not just going to say something to say it. There's some people online that do that. Like, for example, come across this like Georgia podcast where they were all saying like, "Oh, what did Lane Kiffin do at Ole Miss that warrants all this hype of him going to SC?" Shut the fuck up! Like that is the most brain dead take of all time. So whoop de doo. I hit the comments, hit the DMs instantly. Straight crickets, straight crickets. You see the screen. We got these tiers up here with all the logos, and how I'm going to do this. Obviously, A B C D F, pretty standard ranking system. But I'm not just going to go like, oh, who got the highest rated players? Like that's stupid. I want to mix in what are the expectations? How did they do last year? And how does this portal class change how we view them going into 2026 season? I'm going to have 24/7 pulled up here, just impossible to keep up with who everybody got, like the extent of what positions for a lot of them. Like I think West Virginia added like 80 dudes. Like, how as a Mountaineer fan do you keep up with that? So I'll go through it, have a good idea of how I want to rank it. A tier, I'm thinking this is like you blew it out the water, absolute home run. I don't think anyone's really going to disagree with in terms of how you did in the portal itself and put yourself like a national championship contention, for real, because of what you did in the portal. So the first school, I don't think it's going to surprise anyone. Just get it out of the way. I'll go Texas here, bringing back Arch Manning, adding Cam Coleman. They did some stuff across the O-line, but like Zion Williams, I think he's solid. Obviously, I know him because of LSU. There's Cam Coleman. They got Hollywood Smothers, which that's going to go big into my Bama rankings. And I try not to look too much at the stars here because it's like, who knows? Okay. They added some people on the O-line, and they didn't have like a ton necessarily that they needed to do. Like, say, like an LSU or all these schools that had like a coaching change where you're losing a ton of people that played a lot last year and you need to really bring a lot of guys in. They were just filling some needs here and there, and then obviously splash on Cam Coleman. They were in on a lot of the other big time prospects. So easy A. And once they get another easy A, non-biased, of course, but I don't know how you could argue against it. Ella cleaned up in the portal, got 3 top 5 players. Seaton was absolutely massive for us. Our O-line was so shit last year. Added Seaton. You added 3 quality quarterbacks. That's the one everyone's going to know. And obviously, Usain Longstreet, who was at USC, was a 5-star. And I don't want to focus too much on LSU because I imagine the majority of people that are watching this from my channel are obviously LSU fans. So LSU A tier. That's all I got in my A tier. Those are the only 2 teams where I look like, okay, they went out and did what they needed to do and really solidified themselves as like legitimate title contenders next year. A theme, as you'll see as we go through this, I'm just not super blown away with a lot of what the cream of the crop supposedly SEC programs are doing. B tier was tough. It gets really tough between B, C, and D to rank. I'm going to show my non-bias here and give a team I hate a job well done. I have to give it to Ole Miss. They had a really good class, especially with all the turmoil, a lot of drama there, not great looks. They still had a really good portal. They obviously add the linebacker from Cal that was at Clemson for like 2 days, and Tabo did the thing. He's a really good player. I don't think they brought in like that elite, someone like a Seaton, but they spent big money, and I think they're going to be very good next year, depending on the Chambliss thing and how Deuce Knight turns out. The only thing that maybe would have given them an A is say they got Lagway or someone, or like if they were able to entice Ty Simpson to come back, which it was reported they were trying. So because the quarterback's a little murky and there's a good shot they're going into next year with an unproven Deuce Knight and Walker Howard as their quarterback options, I have to give them a B, but they did do a nice job. I think I'm being, pretty fair there. But like I said before, it'd just be stupid if you say they didn't have a really good class. So past that, I think we're going to get into some ones that maybe surprise people. I was a big fan of what Kentucky did in the portal. And look, did they get the quality of players at the top end that, some of these other schools are going to be ranked below them, in my opinion, did? No. But they had some good wins. Obviously, they brought Levitt in, which, LSU ends up getting him. But I feel like that was pretty big for Kentucky. I was shocked when I saw originally Sam Levitt was even taking a visit there. I think Will Stein did a good job of capitalizing a lot of like the momentum and hype that he has coming into that program. They added some dudes to Louisville, and they added some dudes that are football ops from Louisville that I know people around Kentucky will know the significance of that, but some good wins on and off the field in the portal. They obviously flipped Kenny Mitchie or something. He was committed in the portal to Nebraska. They flip him pretty early on. I thought that was a pretty big statement. They got Ahmad Bro, who's a really solid DN. Thinks he's a decently good player. They added Nick Anderson, who had a terrible year at LSU, but he was someone I was looking forward to potentially getting back because I think a lot of the reason he didn't succeed is one, no one could really succeed in the offense where Nuss was hurt or whatever. And then the O-line was literally terrible. And I think the play calling didn't help anyone out, which is funny because Joe Sloan's the new OC at Kentucky. But Nick Anderson, a year off the ACL. So I think that had a lot to do with maybe why he didn't perform or didn't look as good as you maybe wanted him to coming from Oklahoma. An extra year removed from that ACL, that could be a dime in the rough. I think he's only rated like a 3-star on all the platforms. And then they got Zalance Hurd, who he's a lot of mixed opinions about him all over the place. He's a dude that has played a ton of SEC football between LSU and obviously Tennessee and supremely talented. With the class they brought in, I would be excited if I was a Kentucky fan. Trying to round out the rest of this, I got to throw another school I really don't like in the B area, A&M. They're kind of like Texas to me in a way where they didn't have a ton of needs necessarily. Like they really didn't lose anyone of significance to the portal. They filled in some nice spots, got Horton from Alabama, who I think everyone likes. I know they took, I think, the 2 best O-linemen from LSU this past year, which, to be honest, might not be saying that much. But Wilcom Formbeer, this is who I was thinking of for Texas. I know the jury is out on him, but he's played a lot of SEC football. And then Tyree Adams, who I thought played the best of all the LSU O-linemen this past year. And Cohen Eccles, who I thought was also up there, who showed some flashes. So they did a lot to solidify their O-line depth. Maybe they're losing a lot of people, but no, I was impressed with what they did. Good stuff here and there. I really like Horton. Not an A because they didn't have like the Cam Coleman high-end guys that you would have thought. You're looking at some of these teams. I'm genuinely hard pressed to put any of the rest of them in the B tier. Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. I'll go to school who would have been in the B tier for sure if they would have added a quarterback, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers. I got to go see. Look, I know they landed Chaz Coleman, who's a big-time prospect, which is why I kind of, dinged A&M from an A to a B is like, I don't think they have the greatest, most high-end talent. They just did a nice job a little bit all around. Tennessee, look, they added plenty of good guys, a lot of dudes from Penn State on defense, which I think is good because the Jim Knowles defense is notoriously super hard to learn. And the first year, there is some struggles. So, which I think is why you saw Penn State have more struggles than people expected this year on the defensive side of the ball. But you bring in Coleman, you bring a lot of the other Penn State guys that know the system. And I think Tennessee didn't lose a ton that you would hate. But my thing is they didn't bring a quarterback. So your ceiling is super capped with Joey Aguilar. If he even gets to start, I would be hard-pressed to think they're going to win the national championship with him playing. And then you have George McIntyre, who was at one point a big-time 5-star. And then you got the Faison kid, who I think finished as a 4-star, but for a lot of the cycle was a 5-star as a freshman. Obviously, you don't want to start freshmen in the SEC. I don't think you're going to have Faison start. And then my thing was if McIntyre is so good, which is what a lot of people are trying to sell me on, is why are they going out trying to get Sam Levitt? Why are they hosting Prabula? Why are they going after a lot of these quarterbacks? Ty Simpson, they were going hard after him apparently. So just because they didn't get that quarterback, I just can't rate them any higher than a C because they're just, to me, the same team as they were last year. A team that also I considered sneaking in B tier, but I just couldn't do it is Mizzou. Mizzou, I like the additions they brought in. Austin Simmons and Caden Lee from Ole Miss. I think that's going to be a really good tandem. I think if they didn't lose Damon Wilson to Miami, or even if he just would have gone pro, I think I probably would have ranked them as a B, but I just couldn't do it because I think he should have been the number one edge in the portal, in my opinion. He's a beast. It sucks to lose him, but, you keep Ahmad Hardy. You add Austin Simmons, you add Caden Lee. I'm a fan of what they did. The further you get down, because all these schools are majority bringing in guys that the services aren't super high on it. It's hard to know what they got, but I think Drink gets a bad rap, and I think there's some good potential. Continuing to see another team I thought for a hot second of putting in B, South Carolina. I thought they were going to have a nearly impossible feat going into this transfer portal class, which is everyone knows this is going to be Shane Beamer's last year. It's just not working out. I think the writing's on the wall. He looks like a dead man walking. I can't lie. and I thought it's gonna be really hard to get people to buy in. Now they do have Lenore Sellers. They were able to keep Dylan Stewart, which I know that was a worry for a little bit, but I just couldn't bump them to B. They made one splash in that NC State tackle they got. I wish they would have been able to give Lenore Sellers more. I think they got, in terms of like receiving threats, they got an Old Dominion transfer who's okay, pretty decent, and they got a Tuggle from Purdue. These guys look pretty decent, but not world beaters. I really wanted to see Lenore Sellers with some better weapons, but I do like that they worked out the O-line. And honestly, I almost put them in B just for getting that NC State dude. I still don't think they're going to have the talent to navigate an SEC schedule next year, especially at 9 games. Continuing on in the C category, I'll give it to OU. I know they added Livingstone or whatever, the dude that grew up a massive Texas fan his whole life and was Arch's roommate and somehow transfers to OU. I mean, I know he's solid. They added Jack Van, whatever, from Tennessee, who's decent. But I would have thought they would have gone more all in, man. You get Mateer coming back. I know people kind of cooled on him as the year went on. I think a lot of his struggles down the stretch was just that injury, and it's still affecting him a little bit. Plus, the time missed sucks. Second year in the system, that same OC. I don't know. I would have thought go all in. You got the defense that's always going to be taken care of with Brent Venables, sorry. So I would have liked to see why. I mean, maybe they try to get on like a Cam Coleman or some of these other receivers, but I'm just a little surprised that Livingstone is the biggest receiving threat they end up adding. I know they're pretty firm in that C class for me, and they weren't any close to getting a B. I honestly thought about putting them D. They're pretty much the lowest team on this C class, in my opinion. Rounding out the C class, another team I could have easily put in D. I'll go Arkansas. They added the Tulane corner. They added that former 5-star dude, Marshall, from who's at Boise State. I can't remember. So, they're taking some swings on some guys. They got Jelani Watkins from LSU, who's a track guy that I think he could be really good. So, because I think they got a couple of decent dudes, and they got a ton of numbers. It's just hard to know. They got a lot of guys from all over the place. I mean, probably not rated that highly. I don't see Arkansas fans like, oh man, we're absolutely loving what Silverfield's doing. But I also really don't see people like, oh, yeah, that portal class went terrible like we expect. I think there is some optimism just because it's a fresh face and they didn't do horrific in the portal. They brought in enough guys. I'll leave them at the bottom of C. It is what it is. Getting in the D, I know you guys see these names at the bottom here. I'm sure some people are going to be pissed off, but Alabama, I got to put D. And at one point when I was doing this, I was like, let me put them B. Then Smothers got flipped, which is crazy. It's one thing when Nebraska gets flipped a guy by Kentucky, like it's bad looks. When you're at Alabama and you're getting your top ad in the portal flip by Texas, that stings. And if you just go through the list, which I will here real quick, it's just, I don't see where's the jump going to be with this Alabama team. Alabama fans expect national championships year in and year out. And like, obviously, yeah, it's Alabama. They're going to bring in good, highly rated players, but I don't know. I think it reflects in the odds that I don't think anyone was wowed by their portal class. I think their fans would even say it. I think they're a little upset about how this all went down. So I don't want to spend too much time on it again, just because Alabama's going to be good next year, but are they going to be better than Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, A&M? I don't know. So I could have put them C, but I just think because of the expectations fans probably had for them going into this portal, I just can't do anything but a D. Next school, I got maybe a controversial one. Well, maybe not that controversial. They don't really do anything in the portal, but I got to put Georgia. So Kirby is very reluctant to use it. I understand. But in this day and age, and especially the year where you got bounced, again, early in the playoffs, and I think in a game, I think they expected to beat Ole Miss walking into that game this year. I think the year prior when they played Notre Dame, I know Notre Dame went on to go to the national championship, but I think they expected to win that game. So how are Kirby going to take that next step to get back to where they were a few years ago? And in this day and age where the teams you see succeeding are leading in the portal more and more, I don't understand why they don't do it. I've heard rumors that they don't have enough money, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit more of Kirby just really not wanting to do it. And yeah, I think they probably have a majority of these guys they added are super quality, but I just don't see any guys jump off the page like, oh yeah, like that's really going to raise the ceiling of their team. Like Bryson Beaver's a dude LSU was on coming out of high school. I think he's really talented, but like he's obviously not starting next year. I'm also high on Dowdwell. There's a little bit of time for Kentucky, but like once again, is he going to be Herschel Walker? Obviously not. I'm just not seeing the jump. Like I think they're a playoff team, but national championship, I don't know. I don't know if I see it. Don't want to spend too much time on them. Next one, I'll go Mississippi State. They added a ton of guys with SEC experience, but I think it's a lot of guys that the reason they left their previous stop was because either they were losing their job or the staff was just like, it's probably best for you to transfer. They also didn't add a ton of like insane receiving threats for Kamario Taylor, O-line. They're trying to piece together a few diamond in the roughs. I kind of hope they would do a little more, kind of like OU. I wish they would have gone in more on supporting their quarterback in terms of weapons, but it's going to be hard for Mississippi State. Like, I think all their money is going into baseball and basketball, and I think just football is taking a beating right now. I don't know how you could think they're going to be significantly better than last season. And then Vandy, I'll throw in. I almost put them C just because who knows? They just get complete diamond in the roughs. That's what they did last year, and they all end up working out good. But I just couldn't. Like, they're rated really low on everything. If you go through their transfers, like I wasn't too familiar with all of them. DeBose, I know from Alabama, just because LSU was recruiting him hard in high school. But it's like I don't think he ever really played, so it's hard to know. So I was going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but just stick at D because there's so many mysteries. And I would have, if I was a Vandy fan, I got this number one high school quarterback coming in. You got some momentum from this past season. I would have liked if they cashed in on a little more high profile class, but they have their methods. So I'm not saying fans should have down expectations if you're a Commodore, but not a ton to write home about it, at least at this point in time with what they did. And then we got our final two. Don't know where are we going to put them. I'm going to give Auburn a D. Once again, do they have a better portal class than some of the other teams above them? Absolutely. But I think it's so important during a coaching change to come in and win that first offseason. Goalish, I think he talks well. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. He's a good offensive mind. I like the hire, but they didn't add a ton of dudes I like. They added a ton of dudes from USF, like a shit ton of dudes. And like, makes sense because that's where Goalish is from, but I don't know. They lost Singleton. They obviously lose Cam Coleman. That had a big place in their ranking being down here. And I like Byron Brown. I'm sure all the USF dudes are nice, but if a lot of them are going to be playing, I think it's very risky. And he obviously, Goalish just had that little viral quote recently. Like, I'm going to be praying about the O-line going this year, which is like not what you want to hear in February about the O-lines. Just would have hoped they would have gone out, but and spent more money and got some guys. And also, like, they brought in some big guys I'm just not that high on. The defense is for sure going to be good, but how much can that offense jump? I know USF beat Florida last year, but whoop-de-doo, almost everyone beat Florida last year. So we'll see. I like Brown. I think Goalish, he talks well. He's an offensive mind. He's got good energy. We'll see. I would have just liked if they would have been able to keep Cam Coleman, keep Singleton. I just feel like they're going to have to play a lot of these USF guys. Was USF really sitting there last year with 7-8 guys that would be quality players on SEC teams? I don't think so, or else they'd have made the playoffs. I have to keep them there. And then finally, my only F I'm giving to a school is Florida. I can't lie. During the portal, like it's hard to keep up with how other teams are doing. I'm sure if you're a fan of another team, like, unless you're hearing about like these big headline guys, you don't really know what they're doing. We got done with the portal, and I'm sitting here going through the rankings. And I'm like, damn, I don't really remember Florida getting anybody that good or even being in on any of them. And you go through it, it's just not very inspiring at all. It's just a lot of guys from Georgia Tech, which is like, okay, well, yeah, was Georgia Tech decent last year? Like, they're paying Aaron Philo, going to be the quarterback next year, $2 million. It's like, did he really warrant that? Like, are we that confident? Once again, it's kind of like my issue a little bit with Auburn. If we're just plugging and playing these guys from, these other schools that didn't light the world on fire either last year, it's like, how much faith can I have? Especially when they're being paired with the same coaches they already had. I do like Singleton from Auburn that they got. I think he'll be a good receiver to place Wilson. But my thing is, I don't think they should have let Lagway leave. I know a lot of people are down on him, and I just think that's a little ridiculous. You saw how good he was his freshman year, and then I think people forget he didn't even get a chance to practice basically the entire offseason. He was out like all spring, I think all summer with the shoulder, and then I think in some of the first practices for fall ball, he hurt his ankle and was in a boot. That time is crucial for young quarterbacks, and I think that's a lot of the reason why he struggled. So whatever little issue happened that him ended up leaving. I think it's going to prove to be a mistake. And like I said, my reason for giving Florida this F ranking is all I heard about in the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes, and Ole Miss fans will agree, is Florida was just beating their chest. Well, we got more money than y'all. We got more money than Ole Miss and LSU. All right, where is it? Where's this money? Why aren't we putting it to use? Does Summerall not believe in the portal? I have a hard time believing that. Where is all this money? Why are we not making any splashes? Why are we not even in? Like, I don't even, they weren't in on Jordan Seaton. They weren't in on Cam Coleman. They weren't in on, Chaz Coleman. They weren't in on any of these elite guys. I just don't see what there is to be excited about. And I think Summerall is a good coach. He was a guy that if LSU couldn't get Lane Kiffin, I would have liked at LSU. But I think for him going to Florida specifically, right now, every new coach at every new school is in a honeymoon period because no games have been played. So Florida fans, post their depression of getting tricked by all their reporters, thinking they were getting Lane Kiffin and then didn't, they're tweeting up this Summerall now. But I think when you go out next year, they're going to have a brutal schedule every year they play just because of who their rival protected opponents are in the SEC. I just don't know how they get through their schedule. I think they lose some games early that on paper you would say, yeah, they probably do lose those right now. I'm telling you, that fan base is going to flip on him so quick. It's going to be, he was our second choice, and he's another group of 5 coach from Louisiana who that school specifically did not want, and that's what they ended up with, which I just feel for Summerall because in this day and age, you need to have a good first year because the portal has so much to do with your success, and top-end kids want to go to a place where they can compete for a championship. So if you start out your first year and win 5 games again, and it's like, damn, Florida, they haven't won 8 games in half a decade. It's like you're not ever going to be able to get that talent, especially if they're not spending money. And I think maybe some of the reason they haven't spent money is that maybe some of these boosters that were saying to Scott Strickland and the Florida administration, like, oh, yeah, we'll give you such and such money with Lane Kiffin. Maybe they're holding back on Summerall because they're not that excited about it behind the scenes. So I have to give them an F. And this is my final rankings. I think it's pretty fair, but I'm sure everyone will have a problem with it. Sound off in the comments what you think. And if anybody, any opposite fan base has a problem with this, let's debate. Let's debate. I'm happy to debate on any subject. So that's going to be it for this time, guys. Appreciate you tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.